Dark Angel is bad. It's a shitty day when you come to the realization that something you used to love is actually hot garbage. That all of its depth and fun were just due to you wearing very thick-rimmed nostalgia glasses, and whatever you loved had the same artistic value as dog shit thrown on the wall. I've been having a lot of these days lately. So why am I even talking about this game? Certainly nobody fucking remembers it, nobody talks about it, it's in no way remarkable. Well, the answer is pretty damn simple. I couldn't find the final boss fight anywhere. And you're gonna have to trust me on this one because I looked fucking everywhere. I looked on YouTube, I looked on everyone's channel I could find, I looked on Vidmo, may it rest in peace. I looked on Pornhub, I was sorely disappointed. You might be wondering why I would even care about a final boss fight for a game that literally nobody's ever heard of before. Well, I've owned it since I was like 5. And I actually have never beaten it. So I decided, as an old man now, I am going to go through and beat the fucking game. And I did. Let's get this out of the way right now. Dark Angel Vampire Apocalypse is the worst Diablo clone I have ever played. At the time of its release, there were still better Diablo clones. Hell, even Diablo itself was on the PS1. It's made by these fucks who made absolutely nothing notable. Everywhere I looked for information about this game, I kept coming across the same few taglines. Dark Angel offers hundreds and hundreds of hours of gameplay, and by God, they actually mean it. I wish those hundreds of hours were filled with fun and not boring and tedious gameplay. Where the fuck do I even begin? The combat of Dark Angel is a simplified version of Diablo's, which is dumbed down to a point where you can use the 4 face buttons on the PS2's controller to control pretty much every one of your actions. Each one of the face buttons uses an item when it's pressed down. These items are axes, broadswords, maces, rune swords, sabers, scythes, and vampire swords for the melee weapons, and pistols, and some useless pieces of shit for your ranged weapons, alongside your typical potions of varying size. Each of the melee weapons are strong against certain enemy types, and they can be found imbued with elemental stuff. Your ranged weaponry, as one would expect, requires ammo. You have to buy it from vendors, and it's rather expensive early game, so you ain't got no ammo for your 17th century machine pistol. In addition, every gun shares the same ammo pool and type, which doesn't matter that much because, like I said, every gun is a pistol. Yes, boring. You can assign any combo of these weapons or items to your face buttons that you wish, and if you hold a button, you'll do a special attack that drains mana. If you do this with certain kinds of boots, you'll fly. Oh my god. There is a problem here though, and it's twofold. The first problem is that your mana drains like nobody's fucking business. You hold down the square button for like 2 seconds, and you do the spinny attack, and now you have no more mana, which means you're horribly fucked because the standard attack is fucking useless. Second problem, the combat sucks. Allow me to demonstrate how you play this game. Go into any area, find a group of enemies, hold down a button, and win. If you haven't won in 15.3 seconds, you're already dead. Rinse and repeat ad nauseum until you're invincible. You might be wondering, where are the spells, Crazy? Where the fuck are the spells? They're not there. They don't exist. There are no spells. So the game has an incredibly simple control scheme, paired with easy to unwinnable fights, of which there is no in-between. And it lacks any sort of magic system or alternative to give the player more choice, therefore making the combat incredibly limited and very, very boring. Let me clarify, you don't need some sort of magic system or alternative in order to have some engaging combat encounters. Adding systems like that create more complexity, sure, but they don't inherently have depth. A huge number of games get on just fine without a secondary system like this, but this is due to their own combat system, i.e. punching, shooting, or just not fighting in general, having depth. Depth in gaming is often spoken nebulously and not given a concrete or clear definition by most people. And while I'm not a smart man, let me try and give this definition some depth. Depth is often paired with complexity, and the two are described in some sort of body of water type metaphor. Complexity being the overall surface area of the water, and depth being, well, I think you get it. Complexity refers to how many systems a game has, how hard they are to master, how many rules the player must know before they can enjoy the game, and so on. Depth is the intuitiveness of these systems, how they interact with one another, the pacing of the game, how they affect player choice, so on and so forth. To paraphrase people smarter than me, ideally you want a game with as little complexity and as much depth as possible. This way, the mechanics given to the player to work with become increasingly more gratifying to use as A, the player continues through the game, and or B, the game introduces more mechanics that seamlessly weaves in and interacts meaningfully with the systems the game has already introduced. All of this while throwing tutorials piecemeal at the players so they can master each mechanic and know how to, well, have fun with what the game is giving them, or get the intended emotional effect, or so forth. Games that are really complex from the get-go or suffer irreducible complexity can be daunting to a new player and can effectively scare them off. However, if a game has a simple mechanic that is fun to use and interacts with a bunch of simple mechanics as well, now you have depth with minimal complexity. Complexity can be a bad thing when the player gets over the initial difficulty spike and learning curve, but then realize that there really isn't any experimentation that can be done with what the game has given them, i.e. complexity without depth. Think of games like Banished. When you're first starting out in the game, it can be brutal, requiring multiple resets in order to have a successful colony running. Its difficulty stems from the simple fact that there is just so much shit to master, and if you don't do one thing right, winter comes for your people and they all die horribly. The problem arises once you get that colony on its feet, and you realize there just isn't anything else to do. Now that you mastered the game's mechanics, there's just no room for experimentation. There's just nothing left for you to do, nothing to strive for. Once you get educated villages, that's kinda it until you hit Alt F4. But like I've said a dozen times, when you pair complexity with depth, you get some of the best games ever made. Breath of the Wild, XCOM, Homeworld, Final Fantasy VII, so on and so forth. Fuck, look at Monster Hunter. While the older games are notoriously difficult to get into, World isn't. It's incredibly complex and incredibly deep. The way it offsets its complexity is by giving the player their tutorials piecemeal, only showing them one thing at a time so the player can master it, move on, and master the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. It did it so much better than pretty much every Monster Hunter game before it, with a better tutorial, a competent story mode, tweaks to the UI, and so on. And once you master everything, you still feel like you have so much to learn and try. Yeah, you might have used dual blades for the last 100 hours just fine, but have you tried longsword? Fuck that, have you tried a jumping monkey dual blade build? Because the armor abilities allow players to experiment with different and meaningful playstyles for the same goddamn weapon. It's fun. I have a lot more to say about depth and complexity, and particularly Monster Hunter's ingenious design, and I fully plan on talking about it in the future. But I think this video was about something else. Oh yeah. Dark Angel is a drop of water in the grand scheme of things. You can count the number of mechanics it has for combat in one hand. The melee weapons function pretty much identically with the exception of their special attacks. Hold the button to spam the pistol, use the boots, and blocking. That is it for the complexity of the combat, and the only depth I can think of is having each weapon be more effective against certain enemy types, which is cool and all that, but which type is this? Is this a fiend? Is this a biomech? Is it my liberal agenda? I don't mind figuring out which enemy is which, and since the monsters are attached to certain areas anyway, it's not terribly hard to do so, but frankly, there just isn't much of a point because the bonus damage is fucking negligible. I did have hope the game would do something interesting with the armor you could put on, but instead of being able to mix and match pieces of armor like most people would expect out of a Diablo clone, you can only manage one fucking piece. While being able to dress as a ninja in 17th century Europe is fucking hilarious, the armor just doesn't do anything interesting. So, in summary, it has a skill floor babies can master and a skill ceiling that would crush those babies. So let's look at another aspect, the narrative. Maybe that's good. Wait, nope, it has to exist in order to be good. So you start up the game, right, and you hit the start button. Sometimes it's like an intro sequence, other times it's a text scroll. Nope, you get thrown straight into a battle, no explanation, nothing explained to you. In fact, you just have to figure out the controls, which, if you haven't been paying attention up till now, is not a challenging task in the slightest. The only thing I can classify as a narrative per se is some random-ass demon shouting, and that's it. That's like the only exposition anyone gives, ever, throughout the whole game. And they're being serious about that one-year timeline. Not that it matters, for you're not gonna play it for that long. The only effective way to pass time in this game is to travel between hubs. You do this by going to this big-ass mini-map and just picking a place and going to it. And if you want to pass a lot of time, you just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and it doesn't fucking end. It's made worse because the PS2 has horrible load times. So what's in these hubs, you may ask? Well, 3 of them are little copy pasta towns, which look exactly alike. In these copy pasta towns, you have 1 shrine to give coupons to up a stat, 2 merchants, exactly, unless one of them is kidnapped. And occasionally, one of the merchants is also a quest giver. Go figure. In another 3 areas, you have battlegrounds, which are literally just flat pieces of land with some trees or rocks or some other bullshit. And the whole purpose is to fight shit here and to do quests. That's it. The last 3 zones are all dungeons. The Necropolis, the Ancient Forest, and, this one. Here's where you're going to be spending the bulk amount of your game time. No matter how deep you go into the pits of hell, you'll always encounter the same fucking enemies, maybe just slightly higher level and stronger. There aren't really bosses per se, but just champion versions of default enemies, which means they're bigger and they hit harder and they take less damage, but the developers couldn't even bother to like give them a palette swap because coloring things blue is hard. So while the developers couldn't be fucking bothered to put a tutorial in the game, they did bother telling the player in the manual where they're supposed to go at first. So ideally you're supposed to start out at the Necropolis because it's easier to beat at lower levels, and I guess it's what it says in the book. Then you move on to the Tanglewood and the Lost City. Is that what that's called? I guess it's called the Lost City. There's actually a lot of shit in this manual which really could have been put into a text box and explained a little bit better to the player. And by explained a little bit better, I mean explained at all. Each dungeon contains one of the coupons that you redeem at the shrines in the copy pasta towns. You could get them by just wrecking shit. Go for it. And apart from the quests, that's about it for dungeons. So, that was every level in Dark Angel Vampire Apocalypse. I hope you're ready to spend hundreds and hundreds of hours here. I know I am. So we have shitty combat and 9 areas to explore, but why would we even go out to these areas? Good question. Remember those quests I mentioned? When you figure out how to accept one from a merchant, you get these little red flags on the mini-map, representing that's where the fuck you're supposed to go, boyo. So when you go there, you have to open up your select menu and figure out what the fuck your quest is. Sometimes you just kill a certain amount of enemies. Sometimes it's just kill a certain enemy. Sometimes it's rescue villagers. Other times it's gather items. Sometimes you need to go into the middle of the forest to get some fucks out of a cage, but the moment you get them out of a cage, you get attacked by a zombie horde, and if any of your fuckers die, you get less rewards. Isn't that perfect? And they will die. Oh god, they will die. You would think the only notable reward from these quests would be gold, but that's not true. Every quest you complete grants you 1 of 3 stat increases. These stats are shown on your minimap in your bottom right hand corner. They are, in this order, Research, Military, and Economics. What do they do? Great question. I don't fucking know. It doesn't actually explain it. I looked in the manual, it doesn't say a damn thing about it. It's like these stats were added in the last minute. I'll make the wild assumption they have something to do with what you can get at the shop. I'm assuming the potion means you get better potions. I'm assuming the sword means you get better swords. And the gold means you get better prices on things? Okay, Crisis, but what about the character progression? Surely this Diablo clone knows that part of what made its source material great was going through dungeons to gain skill points and using said points on a character to customize them to your liking or emphasize a certain playstyle. Sure it did. You see this number? Killing things makes it go higher. You see this armor? We're the one with the highest numbers. You see these boots? Do you really think there were going to be skills you could pick? Did you really think that? You poor summer child. How about the enemies? No, look at them. Look at this thing. What is this? This is, I guess, a biomech? This is, I guess, a vampire? But I don't know what the fuck this thing is. Some sort of lizard thing? Okay, but the graphics are terrible. What about the music? Here, I'll let you listen to it. Are you happy yet? Do you love this song yet? It's in every town. Remember, kids, This game lasts hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. Alternatively, you can do this and listen to podcasts. Okay, fine, so everything in this game is terrible, but you said you beat it. You said you sat through it for hundreds of hours. How did you do this? I didn't. Did you guys really think I was gonna sit here for hundreds and hundreds of hours to play this terrible goddamn video game instead of, like, I don't know, cooking a pizza? No, I used a Game Shark code, because what else would I do? Which was a game in and of itself, because using a Game Shark on an emulator is fucking confusing as hell. I had to go to some weird-ass forums and to download some sketchy-ass programs. Pretty sure I have a porn virus, don't tell my mom. I'm sorry, I'm a disappointment, Mom. But before I resorted to cheats, I did, like, travel back and forth for like an hour to get a year to pass in the game, and then this happened. Poof. Quality transitions. There isn't any cutscene, there isn't any text scroll telling you, hey, go to this area and fight the big boss Shadow Lord boy. It just kinda happens. So I did it. I went to this giant ass crater with, like, these fucks, I guess. I don't know who the fuck they are. And then I went to go fight the big ass Shadow Lord boy, who looks like a generic stone monster. What a quality final boss design. This was the point that I cheated, because I immediately got my ass handed to me. Using the power of God Shark, I skipped the timeline from 1602 or whatever the fuck it was to 1806 for some reason. Skipping 200 years and showing that the Shadow Lord is just a lying piece of shit and he's gonna sit in his crater for 200 years doing nothing. Why the fuck is he a threat again? But before I murdered his dumb ass, I went to all the towns and noticed there were weapons designed specifically to kill the Shadow Lord. A weird looking pistol, some bomb ass bomb, and some super cool looking sword called the Plain Sword or something stupid like that. You use these weapons to destroy the incarnations of the Shadow Lord. The pistol is the first sequence, the bomb is the second, and the sword is the third. The incarnations are just color palette swaps. I don't know why they're called incarnations. The guy doesn't change at all. So let's drop into the crater and kick his ass. So easy, if only I could cheat at life. Oh god, I see why they don't make cutscenes. Look at these faces. Is that supposed to be a baby or a demon from hell? Also, you get some weird-ass victory code that has no place to be entered anywhere. If you guys know where to enter this fucking code, please tell me, because I want to know what the hell this does. There isn't any place on the main menu to enter it. Every forum I looked at didn't know what the fuck to do with it. It just exists for some reason. And I wouldn't mind knowing what it did, you know? And that is literally everything Dark Angel Vampire Apocalypse has to offer. There isn't anything else I can show you. I mean, what else is there left to say? Dark Angel is bad. Hey, thank you for watching. I do remember genuinely loving Dark Angel, and when I played it, I went into it trying to love it again, but it just didn't happen. I'm always really frustrated when I end up hating something I used to love. I'm sure you guys are too. I'm sure I'm gonna give many comments saying I'm being way too harsh to this game, but it is what it is. If you liked the video, you know what to do. Hit the like button. If you want to see more dumb shit, hit the sub button. If you fucking hated me for hating a game you love, you know the button. Click it, do it. Just as Made in Abyss Season 2 was confirmed, the video on it is being done as we speak. It'll be out as soon as I can have it ready. The Monster Hunter video is being worked on as well, and some sort of longer explanation of the depth and complexity rant I put in the middle of this video. That actually wasn't planned, it just kinda happened. I'm experimenting with a bunch of new styles so I can put out more videos more frequently that aren't giant pieces of garbage. Ideally, one of the formats I'm thinking of is a podcast type thing, but instead of just talking, there being nothing on the screen, me and a few fellows will be playing a game while speaking about it, and hopefully that doesn't turn into a giant clusterfuck, but we'll see how it works out. Expect that in the near future. And now a big old hearty thank you to my first couple of patrons. Oh my god, I can't believe that actually happened. Thank you guys very much. Like, I get it, I am a fucking minuscule channel, but it just makes me so happy that anybody feels like my work's worth something to them. So, thank y'all so much. I don't know what to say. If anyone else is interested, the link's in the description. If you give me any amount of money, you get access to a Discord where I'll be every now and then. We could talk, we can play video games, I don't know. What do people with patrons do? I didn't expect this to actually happen. Or go tell me in the comment section to eat shit and die, get a real job, etc, etc. How dare I be an e-beggar? You know, it is what it is. Lastly, I'll be on Twitch. I'm thinking about playing Parasite Eve if you're at all interested in that. That game's fucking great. How did we forget about it? And if you've made it to this part of the video, thank you again for watching. I plan on making more dumb shit like this in the future. I hope you continue to watch and continue to enjoy my dumb shit if you've enjoyed it at all. See ya!